Welcome to Good News Rhode Island, the show about Rhode Island, the whole state of Rhode Island, and all the people and places and events that make Rhode Island a great place to live, that build our communities, that draw in our history and also look toward our future. There's nothing more fundamental about Rhode Island than our land which is surrounded by water, virtually surrounded by water. The land that Roger Williams found that was so beautiful, he could not speak enough about its beauty. And I think those of us who live here feel the same way. But today we're going to talk about the Land Trust, the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, all the pieces of land that are being preserved for perpetuity by people who care about land and care about today and protecting land, but also about the future and land use. And today we have with us Rupert Friday, who is the director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council. Welcome, Rupert. And we have Helen Trager, who's here, and she's co-chair of the Rhode Island Land Trust Days Committee, which is a big event that's coming up in the summer that we hope everyone will attend, at least part of. So welcome to both of you. Both of you care about land. You care about forests, you care about air, water, the beauty of the natural contours of the land. How did you get into this work?
So when I was a very little boy, I spent a lot of time running around the countryside and have always been involved in the environmental field and the environmental community. And I've moved into land conservation because it's the one area where you can make a difference that lasts for generations. The land conservation we work to do the work that we do today, it'll still be there generations from now.
That's a very long view. That's wonderful. Most people don't think about their life as impacting people who've not yet been born, and I think that's really important. Helen, how about you?
Well, when I first moved to Rhode Island, like many people, I heard about a free walk that was offered by the Land Trust. Went out with my two very small kids at the time, carrying both of them when they got tired, but had a wonderful experience, and that's how I got involved in my community.
So it's really volunteerism that has led you here initially anyway.
Absolutely.
And now you're tied to a lot of responsibilities, but it's still the volunteerism that's the base of what you've done.
Oh yeah, the core interest is definitely more personal. It's more than just a job. Yeah.
And I think people naturally love nature, love what they're seeing. The only person I ever heard of that didn't was Mondrian, Piet Mondrian, the painter, who turned his back to anything natural because he thought it was chaotic.
I think that's absolutely true. I think if you talk to most people, if you go into an auditorium and you ask people to think about their favorite place where they go to relax, or if you ask them to remember their favorite memories as a child, most of the time, those memories and those places to go to relax are outdoors. They're in the open spaces, somewhere outdoors.
Where they breathed different kind of air and heard the water or whatever, listened to the birds. You have something called the Land Trust Council. Let's talk about the word trust first. When I think of trust, I think of the way people encapsulate some funds and put them with a bank and say that they're only usable in the future for certain people at certain times.
Yeah, or you trust one another. You trust each other. And for land trust, it's protecting land with the trust that it's going to be there for generations, for permanently protected. You're trusting it. You're trusting that it's going to be permanently protected.
And then land trust says there's a limited amount of land. Mark Twain said they're not making any more of it, and I think that becomes more and more true as we see things being lapped up by even mountains that we thought were not ever going to change, now being lapped up by ski resorts or whatever. Yeah. Land is a valuable, valuable commodity, and empty land is not empty.
Yeah, no, that's often what happens is people see this piece of land that doesn't have development on it, and it's vacant land, it's empty, and it's not empty. It's habitat for plants and animals. It's important open space. It's farmland producing our food. Scenic vistas. I mean, it's just because it doesn't have buildings on it, it's not empty.
And it's producing our oxygen, which is pretty nice too. And then we have a network of land trusts in the state. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the council is a network of over 45 land trusts. There are land trusts in nearly every community in Rhode Island, and most of them are run by volunteers, people that care about their communities. Many of them are very local. Sometimes there's more than one land trust in a single community. But everyone who's involved cares about the special place. Some people grew up there, but some people just moved there and came to treasure it the way I did. Our local places here in Rhode Island are of great value to everyone, and I think it's important not only for your enjoyment of life, having these everyday places near you where you can just get outdoors, have a quiet moment in your busy day, or as a kid, take a moment or two out of your regular path and explore the woods. That's just something special about Rhode Island, and something that the land trusts in our communities really work to protect.
I was reading yesterday one way to maintain health throughout one's life is to walk quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so that I've just been to Switzerland, and they have ski resorts, ski hills everywhere. You just go, take your skis and ski, because everybody is so oriented toward the outdoors. And in Rhode Island, we could actually do that. Most of us don't know where all the land trusts are, but we could actually walk quite a bit in Rhode Island and see quite a bit of different kinds of geography.
Absolutely. We have land trusts in nearly every town in Rhode Island, and they've protected the special places in their communities. They're sort of the hidden gems in our communities. Mm-hmm. And many of these places have trails, and they're open to the public. And we started collecting, because each of the land trusts, they have the trail maps, maybe at their trailhead, maybe on their website, but it was hard to find them if you didn't know where they were. So we've been partnering with a group. There's a group called the Rhode Island Blueways Council that developed a website called Explore RI to put the launch sites for canoes and kayaks on the one website. And we have worked with them to expand it, so we now are gathering trail maps of all the land trust trails and putting them on one website. So you can go to Explore RI, find the trails that the land trusts have and how to get there, and trail maps, and take walks across Rhode Island.
Okay, we have a different one up right now, Rhode Island Land Trust, and that's another.
That's our website for the Land Trust Council, for the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, which is the coalition of land trusts. Okay,
but you were just talking about Explore RI,
yep,
which is a way to find out where you can put in your kayak or where you can take a walk.
Right, and there's a link to Explore RI on the Rhode Island Land Trust website.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. The Rhode Island Convention Center is going to host the National Land Trust Convention in September, and you're considering this to be quite an honor because Rhode Island has done so much to preserve land.
Yeah, so there's a national conference. The land trust leaders from around the country get together once a year. It's called Rally. They call it a Rally. And we had Rally in Providence in 2004, and we're having a Rally in Providence. We're hosting it again this year. And so you have land trust leaders from around the country coming to Rhode Island to see the work, the land conservation work that we've done in Rhode Island. We have field trips going out around the state, and people from around the country and really beyond the United States coming to see the work in the places that we've protected around Rhode Island. So it's a real opportunity to showcase Rhode Island, and it's a real opportunity for Rhode Islanders that are involved in land trust to network with the leaders from around the country.
This land doesn't come cheap, I assume. And when you find a big parcel that's being put up for sale or for auction or whatever, do you jump on the opportunity and try to raise funds? Are you also a fundraising organization?
So the Land Trust Council is not. We're just a coalition of land trusts. The individual land trusts do the projects protecting the properties. So, and it varies from town to town, from land trust to land trust. Some land trusts, so some properties are donated to land trusts. The landowners say, we would like to have this property protected, and they donate it to the land trust. Other cases, it's an iconic property in the town. It's part of the fabric of the town, and they don't want to see it developed, so it goes up for development, and the citizens rally to raise the funds to protect the property, to buy it, to acquire it, to protect it. So it varies a lot. And no two properties are protected really the same way. There's often a broad coalition protecting each of the properties that are protected.
But you advocate and you give counsel to different organizations?
Yes. So the state coalition, we have workshops on every aspect of land conservation, how to protect land. Once you protect it, how to manage the land, how to put trails in. But we also do work at the State House. We do state policy work to make sure that the lands that we've protected stay protected. That's some of the work that we do as a council. And we do workshops on every, like fundraising to protect land is a workshop that we've offered. So the volunteers that run the land trusts around the state, we provide this kind of workshop training for them.
It sounds really important, because someone lives next to a big piece of land and they'd love to buy it, but it's, $2 million, and most people don't have $2 million, but somehow if they can work something out with the owners and with the community. With
the land trust, if
never give up is what you're saying.
Well, that's often many of the land trusts were formed when a property that went up for sale, and if folks were like, no, we can't see this farm developed, so the citizens get together and say, hey, let's form a land trust and protect this property. And that's how many of the land trusts in Rhode Island started.
Well, it's as grassroots as you can get in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Not only is it preserving grass, but it starts right at the baseline of the citizens that live right there. So now there's a big event coming up this summer, and it's called Land Trust Days, and it's to raise consciousness, I assume, raise awareness, but also increase usage of these land trust areas.
Yes, we're really excited to be hosting the third annual Land Trust Days. It will run from August 8th until September 28th. We have over 30 land trusts providing over 50 events. Most of them are free or very low cost for families, for all abilities, everything from full moon hikes to kayaking to bike rides. There's just something for everyone. Guided walks to take you places in your community that maybe you didn't know about.
So people could stay in Rhode Island and use the beaches, but also look on your website and find something to do almost every day from August 8th on. It's kind of amazing.
Right. It's a wonderful bridge time. Yes. It runs through the summer, through the long days of summer, and to the first days of September and the very beginnings of fall. So it really covers a lot of things, from beach hikes to fall color views. The first day of fall was our biggest event last year, with 10 different events going on in one single day.
Yeah, so we started Land Trust Days for exactly the reason you said. There's a lot of people that don't know that there's land trusts out there. And the land trusts have really protected some of the most special places and communities. And there's people out there that don't know they're there. So how do we get people to know where they are? So we've asked the land trusts around the state to organize walks, guided walks, because often people, even if they knew the trail was there, they might not be comfortable going out on it their first time by themselves. But once they take a guided walk, they're comfortable going back the next time. So we did this really to increase the visibility of land trusts in the places, the real gems that they've protected in communities around the state. So,
you're watching Good News Rhode Island, and we're talking today with Rupert Friday, who's director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, and Helen Drazier, who's talking with us about Land Trust Days. Thank you both for being here. What's your favorite place in Rhode Island? If somebody says to you, where would you go if you only had so much time? Where would you go?
Boy, it's tough. Well, so we had our kickoff. There are so many special places in Rhode Island that people don't know about. We had our kickoff for Land Trustees the first year at Nutaconkinut Hill. And Nutaconkinut Hill is in Providence, and it used to be a Providence ski area. And so you're up high overlooking the city, and it's this incredible forest that you wouldn't know you're in the city when you're at the hill. So that's a place right in Providence that's easy to get to from the city.
Is there signage there?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are trail maps
how do you,
right at the
How do you
park.
find it? You say it's off Mineral Spring Avenue.
There's a park at the base of the hill that has ball fields and stuff next to a school. And then there's trails that go from there up the hill.
Okay, so we'll have to do some sleuthing.
Yeah.
So where else? How about where it's going to be, Mount Hope Farm?
Yeah, so Mount Hope Farm, the walk to this seat of where King Philip's held court it's a rare opportunity. I've been hearing about this since I came to Rhode Island, and I had an opportunity to walk there last year. And we talked to Mount Hope Farm, the folks there, about, hey, would you do this as part of Land Trust Days this year? And they were very excited about that idea. So, and again, here is this property on Mount Hope Bay, incredible forest there, very large trees, very old trees, and not the usual character of the forest in Rhode Island. So those are very interesting spots. There's places in Matunic where you have the glaciation, the end of the glacier, and ponds. You have some of the glacial ponds that you have trails around. Both
Kettles, is that
yep,
right?
Kettle ponds. Yep. The South Kingston Land Trust has trails in some of those areas. Westerly Land Trust has trails. Last year, Westerly Land Trust and, Hopkinton Land Trust and Westerly Land Trust, they both preserved an area along the Wood-Pawcatuck River called the Grills Preserve. They both call their side the Grills Preserve. And they have a trail network on each side. Last year they built a bridge connecting the two sides across the Wood-Pawcatuck River, the Pawcatuck River. So that's a very interesting place. And Westerly Land Trust has a preserve where you can see Block Island from there. So there's a lot of very interesting places around the state.
Block Island's a land preserve in a way, too. How about you, Helen? What would you say you would go to if you had one chance?
I think where we're starting our kickoff on August 8th at 9:30 at Mount Hope Farm is one of the most significant places that hasn't really been fully protected in Rhode Island. I think that few people know that there was a 50-year peace treaty that started at that site, and that the Pilgrims were greeted by the Poconokeets who left from that site for the Thanksgiving. Everyone talks and features Plymouth, but really it was Rhode Islanders that came and set the tone for what happened over the next 50 years. And this is just a great opportunity, a property that really incorporates all that we think about with a land trust, where you have a farm, you have farmers markets weekly, you have a historic site, and you have a lot of open space for a town as densely populated as Bristol. Right there, public trails.
You know, it often shocks me how little the nation knows about how important Rhode Island is.
Yeah.
Yes.
all the history that we have that really was the first of this, the first of that, or whatever. People don't know. And so you are now working hard to preserve pieces of land, I assume. Other pieces of land.
Yeah, the land trusts are. The different land trusts around the state are. One of the things that we started working on as a coalition, and the council is a coalition, we sort of look at ways that the land trust can collectively have an impact. And one of the things we did a couple years ago is we pulled together people to talk about farmland conservation. How do we improve farmland conservation in Rhode Island? And it's so critical. We have, since the 1940s, we've lost 80% of our farmland in Rhode Island. So we only have about 40,000 acres left. And yet it's one of the economic
drives.
One of the economic part of the economic drivers. It's really been increasing lately. We have a lot of young farmers that are starting farms, a lot of interest in buying local produce and buying locally grown food. And the young farmers, their biggest challenge is finding land to farm. So we have about 40,000 acres of farmland in production. Only a quarter of that's protected, so 3/4 isn't protected. And many of our farmers are aging, so we have a quarter of our farmers that are over 65 years old. So pretty soon those farmers are going to retire. So we've been talking about how do we make sure that the farmland we have gets protected so that we can keep our working farms intact. And the way that farms are protected is instead of acquiring them, purchasing them, land trusts, there's programs where you get a conservation easement on the farm. So you buy the right so that it doesn't become subdivided. The farmer retains the ownership of the land. And that way it stays in the farmer's hands, the farmer can keep farming, but there's no pressure to develop it left. There's no longer pressure to develop it. So it keeps it in agriculture.
They're saying someone buys it and then they have an easement of some sort,
Yep.
a financial
Yep.
easement. Well, that sounds really important because I have heard through Farm Fresh and
Yep.
other people that farming is now a major part of our budget in our state, a part of our GNP, if you will.
Yeah, no, if you look at it, so Rhode Island has incredible local farm to consumer, like one of the highest states, direct consumer sale from farms. But then if you look at all the connections, the restaurants that are buying local foods, and you look at the secondary industries, our grape and wine industry, it's really a significant part of our economy, and it's growing. Locally grown food is in the farmers markets. We have so many farmers markets. Recent study, sort of 75% of Rhode Islanders know where their farmers markets are and visit them at least once a year. So it's a real the public very strongly supports this.
So what's the largest farm, or what's the average size farm in Rhode Island? If they're 40,000 acres, there are a lot of farmers. I mean, I don't know how many farmers there are. Maybe
there's just about 1,200 farms.
So that's
so they do an agricultural census every 4 years. The most recent agricultural census shows that the number of small farms is increasing, farms between 1 and 9 acres. So it's these small, young startup farms that are producing vegetables and growing vegetables on a couple acres. That really is the growth of our farming sector. But we have some.
Doesn't seem how you could make a living on that.
We have some. So when you're growing vegetables, it's a very high revenue per acre. So we have some very large farms too that are 300-400 acres. And the other part of the farming sector in Rhode Island, a big part of the sector is landscaping plants. So nursery plants. So.
But orchards and vineyards are really important.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow, we have a beautiful state. I'm not sure what else to ask you or what else you want to tell us about land trust. It seems like a really important topic that we all should become aware of. Not every place has the same signage, which is a problem for those of us who would go to enjoy them or support them. And maybe there needs to be a map that's really readily available for all of us about walking trails and the difficulty of each trail and that kind of thing.
Well,
and you said you're working on that.
That's what we're doing with the Explore-i website.
Yes.
Yeah, things change so much now to produce paper maps. If you produce a map today, the Land Trust this year add 3 or 4 new trails, the map's obsolete. So the website provides the trail maps for each spot, and you can go to the website and you can find, here's all the trails in the state.
You can print it out for yourself.
You can print it out for yourself. And then when the trails get updated, you're just replacing one trail map on the website instead of having to change the trail map statewide.
What are the issues that are up before the legislature that have to do with land trust right now?
Well, so there's two legislative issues that we've been working on this year. There is a proposal, Governor Chafee in his budget this year proposed a bond which includes funding for land conservation, includes land conservation funding in Rhode Island has often been done through state open space bonds. And they provide money through DEM. They provide what they call local open space grants. So the DEM will have a request for proposals for open space grants, and then the land trust or municipalities say, we're really trying to protect this property, and put a proposal in for the property. Since 1985, they've been doing these local open space grants, and it's been an incredibly successful program. We've protected hundreds of acres across the state, and that's often the core funding for the land trust. The state funds have to be matched, so the land trusts have to go out and raise private funds to match it. But it's been a real catalyst. So the state puts out this request for proposals. The citizens are motivated to go out and raise the funds and talk to the property owner about the property they're trying to protect. So it's been a real catalyst. So there's a bond proposal in Governor Chafee's budget that's being discussed. So there's also money in that bond proposal for farmland conservation and for parks development. So acquiring land for parks and for outdoor recreation facilities like ball fields. So that's part. The bond is it's got a lot of other things in it, but those are the land conservation aspects of it.
Sometimes I think if you want to see Rhode Island at its best, you go to a park on a nice day and you see every single age, every single nationality, every single capability there. You see runners, you see walkers, you see people on crutches. I mean, our parks are really used.
They really are. And the public support for these bonds, if you look at the voting success since 2004, it's above 70%. In 2012, the bond support, and you look at this where the voting support is by town. In 2012, the bond, the highest support was in Providence. Providence voters, 82% supported this bond for land conservation. So it's people realize that we're protecting the land. It's important for the future of the state. Nobody's going to look back and say, what were they thinking? Were they crazy for protecting this land?
They're going to be thankful.
Yeah.
And people like you are making history. So thank you so much, Rupert Friday and Helen Trager, for being here and for working for all of us and for our future.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Rhode
having us.
Island.
Yeah.
Thank you to the Rhode Island Land Trust Council. Now, we want to say thank you also to all the people who've made this show possible over the last year. We all work hard, we get together, we have ups and downs, we have studio problems, but we all work out, and somehow we have good shows. So I want to thank first our director, Vern Stromberg, who's back there. He's waving. I want to thank Kate Okula, who's here, who does everything. She's learning everything, the whole trade. Everything is Kate's bailiwick right now. And to Emily, who I can't thank enough, who's done everything to help us with developing the programming and who also does all of the graphics that you've seen. Thank you, Emily. You are invaluable to this show. And then I want to thank Bill Carpenter, who's been here faithfully at one camera or another, or sometimes two. Bill, you can wave. This is Bill Carpenter, who's here helping us, and Will Anderson, who is the editor par excellence and also the cameraman par excellence. Thank you, Will Anderson. Thanks to all of you. You've made the show great, and thanks to you for watching. Good news is right around the corner, and probably you're helping to make it. Please take a walk. Take a walk in one of our parks or land trust properties. Thank you.